Well, welcome one and all. It's Sunday, February 22nd, and I'm still just taking a moment to integrate the incredible solutionaries, scientists, luminaries, government officials, the incredible event that took place yesterday, produced by Greg Apodaca and Nikki and C3OX up at his property in Altadena. Of course, many of you are joining us here as presenters, and we're going to make sure your voices are heard. And of course, some of you here are also participants to kind of witness this amazing, game-changing, and groundbreaking initiative of exercising community leadership and collaboration through the Soil Summit. So very briefly, I'm Michael DiMartino from Earthstock Foundation. We are committed to regenerative solutions for people and planet. And I'm really honored to be here today to help do this production and this broadcast, but also to help generate an ongoing legacy and archive of incredible educational and inspiring content about how us as community members can react to natural disasters, wildfires. And of course, I also learned the other day, this wasn't necessarily a wildfire. They call this a wildfire urban interface because there were homes and people's lives that were affected, not just the burning of a forest or of nature. So we got an incredible lineup for all of you today. But before we really start, I want to just pass the torch to my brother, Greg Apodaca, who really pulled off an amazing collaborative event yesterday. So welcome to Soil Summit Series number 1, Part 2, Greg Apodaca.
Hey, thanks very much, Michael. Just briefly, my story here is that I am the chief explorer of a community benefit corporation I started about 7 years ago, called Community 3.0X. And I'm a lifetime activist who quit my job about 7 years ago when I realized how urgent the climate emergency was. I read a book by Tom Friedman called Thank You for Being Late, in which he made 3 points. The climate emergency is an existential threat that hadn't hit home with me before that. We have global connectivity now to bring the best minds together to address these urgent situations. And now we have the global connectivity through the internet and smartphones, so we can reach around the world to collaborate. And I was not an environmentalist before that, but I became one, sold my car, and said, I need to figure out what I can do, what talents I can bring to the table here to address these needs. And that was really kind of the start of my effort that didn't end yesterday, but had a big kind of a culmination and starting point on soil. And so I guess my role here at Community 3.0 is our organization is about speeding and scaling solutions. There's a great book called What If We Get It Right by Alana Johnson. I recommend everybody read that. There are amazing things going on in the climate game, and we just need to speed and scale them. So we're about doing that using exponential technologies, which is powerful, the most powerful tools ever we've had to use: AI, VR, 3D printing, lots of them in a group called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And so we need to use those exponential technologies to offset the exponential negative impacts of climate change, right? We're not going to beat it if we don't use these technologies. So what got us here is not going to get us there. And the issues that we're addressing are huge. In order to create a better society so we don't just screw the planet up again if we happen to save it this time, I think chances are 50-50 that we can save it. Unfettered capitalism and greed have us seeking profits at the expense of people and planet. That's got to turn around. Patriarchy and keeping women under the feet of men, that's got to stop. And then human supremacy, right? We think that we're different and away from nature when we are part of nature. We need to quit that, and included in that is white supremacy that has people of color not contributing to their full potential. So we have huge challenges, and that's why we need to use these tools. A year and a few months ago, I became a fire survivor. My wife Alma and I lost our home that we thought was going to be our forever home. And quickly we're waking up in neighborhoods that weren't familiar with neighbors that we didn't know. And it's a traumatic experience. We didn't just lose our home, but we lost keepsakes that we've brought into our lives over 50 years, irreplaceable items, pictures of my grandma, stuff we inherited from my mom and dad, and keepsakes from travels. And it wasn't for about a year that it really hit home how different my life was going to be, our lives were going to be. We lost our uh, um, opportunities to rest because there's so many loans to apply for and grants to apply for and county agencies and federal and state agencies to interact with. And, um, we were untethered from our past reality, and we lost our sense of peace of mind for about a year. And it's tough. I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't feel motivated to do anything anymore. I didn't feel I had the same sense of focus. My sense of grit, which I think is my best leadership trait, was gone. And I sought counseling to help understand that. And luckily, my counselor helped me understand that this traumatic experience that I'd been through and the symptoms that I was experiencing were normal. So that's helped me put things into contrast a lot.
So Greg, if I may, of course, we all send our condolences to you for your loss. And of course, the amazing, inspiring part of your story is that you turn this lemon into lemonade, and also not just lemonade, but leadership and the incredible work that you're doing. And I think what came out yesterday, one of the things, and I want to drill down for a minute or two with you about the Soil Summit. A lot of people just look at the collateral material damage, but they don't think about the human element. And you had some amazing people there who work with people in health, but people don't think about what happens to the people. And even though it's been over a year, sometimes that the people in these stories are forgotten. So if you could you share a little bit about what transpired yesterday at your property in Altadena, and maybe some of the takeaway that you got from that experience?
Sure. We Michael and I and Nikki were talking a few months ago and about the survivors and what they were going through. And I thought I was on the mend. And then I read an article in the LA Times talking about soil and how it still might be toxic, even though it had been remediated because the feds screwed up the testing protocols. And we just, in a minute, made a decision to run this soil summit and chose a date arbitrarily. And then I realized I don't know anything about soil. What am I doing here running a soil summit? And I don't know anything about remediation either. So I reached out to people I know, some of them on the call here, Jane Patel and Stephanie Landrigan, and I'm not sure who else is on the call here, but people who I knew who were into soil and remediation and much more into the environment on a hands-on level than I was. Most of my work's more at the 30,000 foot level. And it really was a coming together of community. And I didn't hesitate to ask, what are the questions that we should be asking here? What are people on the ground talking about that they need that we can deliver? And school me on not just the soil part, but what Michael's talking about, which is the trauma part, the financial uncertainty that's in front of all of us, and then understanding that this is going to be a years-long solution. After we go through the soil remediation part, then we have to deal with the whole construction of a new home part that I've never been through. And then after that, we're facing a lawsuit with Edison. So this is kind of a marathon that we're in for here. And somebody said the other day, it's more like a triathlon, right? I mean, it's a marathon on top of a marathon on top of a marathon. And somehow we need to navigate that. And so yesterday we tried to bring subject matter experts in all of those areas together, not just for a day of networking, but for a day to start relationship building, because we need these relationships to develop over 5 years and hopefully longer, so we can leverage resources. None of us has the complete answer. All of us have part of it, and we need to build trusting relationships to manifest that.
Great. And last thing before we move on, two things. I know that in the work that you do, you always mention the wisdom of indigenous people and communities. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of knowledge that we've kind of forgotten with our colonialization here in North America. And then I love your poetic segue to Nikki, because behind every great project, and man, let's say there's an even greater woman, and I know Nikki does a lot of work helping to pull these things together. So at your convenience, we could introduce Nikki and have her share a few words before we jump into the.
Okay, sure. I get to think Nikki and I have known each other for 3 or 4 or 5 years. I don't remember exactly what, but we came together around a shared interest in exponential change and exponential technologies, and the disconnect between how we've been taught to think in schools, which is linearly, and the pace of change, which is now exponential. So it's a complete 90-degree turn that we're making, and most people aren't prepared for that. So somehow we met and talked about that, and she brought her areas of interest to merge with mine, and then I was able to contract with her to help think through the bigger picture of the work that we do. So, Nikki, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate all the acknowledgement. It's awesome. I am working feverishly behind the scenes trying to get pictures so I can share them. It's crazy. I've been working on it since last night. So anyway, I appreciate all of that, and I really loved meeting everybody in person yesterday. It's very special when you move from an online to an in-person event when you've been working, sometimes for years with people, and you finally meet them in person and can hug them and, kind of be in that energy field. And I felt like everybody came together in such a good way. The panels were amazing. And we've got footage of it we'll be sharing over the next weeks. And basically, I just think it's really special to have the community voicing their concerns and literally putting ideas into the politicians and into the leaders of governance, etc., minds. And we literally had a couple of people on the panels that said, I am so in with you. I'm so on board with what's going on here, and please keep talking. Keep bringing up these ideas and these points. And the way to get these things changed, ultimately, in the long run, is to do just that: is to speak out, speak up, and have these things documented in such a way that it's going to be seen on the news. It's going to be seen in print. It's going to be seen in shares on socials, etc. And so that's kind of what we do in the background, is kind of navigate all of those conversations that need to be had. And I am just amazed at how magically these communities have come together. And I give Greg and Michael a lot of credit for having their own networks of people who just show up for them because they have vision and they have beliefs and purpose that people just they warm to. And so that's really the whole crux of how we navigate getting these people together and to have this voice that we can now share. So thank you, all of you. And we're gonna record this too, and so it's gonna be something that we'll share for the next weeks and months and maybe years. Who knows?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Michael,
Thank
you
you so
asked me, you
much.
asked, you asked me to address the indigenous issues. Can I talk about that briefly? Can't hear you. Are you
That
there?
would be a yes.
Yes, okay. Um, about a year and a half ago, I had the pleasure of visiting with some indigenous folks in the Amazon jungle in Ecuador, and it just changed my life. I schooled in the Western world, like most of us, had never really considered a different construct for life. But when I was there and experiencing the majesty of nature, unspoiled nature, in an area so remote that there are no roads into it, that it just struck me, what are we doing here as people in the Western world, spoiling this? And why are we so far distanced that we cover over our cities with pavement instead of appreciating nature at a much more level? And the indigenous folks, the people there I interacted with, it just hit me that we have more in common with them than not, right? They might be walking barefoot and bareback in the jungle still, but we all just want to have safety for ourselves and our kids, and the opportunity to educate ourselves in whatever our passion is, and live in cooperation with our neighbors. And I want to try and bring those concepts back to post-fire LA. And And in our community of 36 homes, of which 29 burned to the ground, we want to, from this clean sheet of paper, so to speak, we want to see if we can build shared veggie gardens um, uh, and fruit trees, and shared composting, shared cisterns to capture water for firefighting and for irrigation, shared electrical grids. There's so much more ways that we can live in gratitude and sharing things with our neighbors instead of just rebuilding multi-million-dollar homes where we don't talk to anybody. Um, that's a big major construct change that we need to have is to think about how we can share each other's resources and use less, instead of continuing with this unfettered capitalism and consumerism, right? It's on us to change our ways and to vote with our dollars to change corporate ways as well, because we're on a path to extinction in the not too distant future, and we need to wake up and act differently, and that needs to start now. So thanks.
Thank you. And I love what you said, Greg. As you know, I work also with some indigenous people. And what people don't realize is that when the colonial people arrived here in America, it wasn't just a unfeathered wilderness. A lot of it was curated, stewarded in a very responsible way. Things like prescribed burns and fire mitigation. Also, the idea of like allowing beavers to do the work they do to help hydrate the land through creating permaculture methods that slow sink water. So I'm glad that you brought that up because there's so much wisdom there. We might not think about it. Maybe some of us, our experience of indigenous people has been seeing like a Western or a movie, but there's a whole treasure trove of ancient knowledge here that's available for us to kind of bring back into modern society. So we're gonna move on. Again, I want to ask everyone to keep your microphone muted, please. And in just a moment, I'm going to introduce Natalie Pace, who's going to do some screen sharing about some of her content. And she's doing amazing work. But I wanted to start off, before we jump deep into the soil testing, the soil remediation, and some of the science, we kind of want to put it in context of the bigger ecological and human picture right now, what we call regenerative solutions, so that people can follow the course of thinking and also find this content today more useful. So before we do that, he's here by me. I'm going to just share very quick one of the people that has been very involved in helping to do some of the outreach and stuff. I just want to give him a quick minute and welcome Ari Loftapure, who is another solutionary, and then we're going to bring on Natalie Pace from the Earth Gratitude organization. So welcome, Ari.
Yeah, Ari Loftapure here, CEO of the Alliance for Regenerative Communities platform. I helped start building this a couple months ago with Michael to really organize the network that has been created, through his activities, and then, really inspired by the fire that happened here. So my brother lost his house in Altadena as well. I'm actually a resident of Texas, so that's really my only connection to this. But we built this out, so far to really help people flesh out their ideas, their plans, their projects, through this initiative Launchpad, and take that all the way down to being, fundraiser ready by the end of that startup hub. So I really encourage everyone to check that out. We've got the membership tiers, we've got volunteer tiers as well, so you can participate and assist these initiatives and take up tasks and use the AI task assistant to create those deliverables. So that's what I'm really hoping to provide is these tools that can accelerate progress and take some of the manual operations out of the mix, because it can be very time consuming, energy consuming, and I know everyone is tired dealing with a lot of other issues, trauma from all this events. So whatever I can do to make this platform more robust to address the needs here, I'm all about that. So check it out, Alliance for Regenerative Communities platform. We've got a short URL that you can go to. It's easier to type in. It's a4rc.me, and that'll take you to the platform now. So thank you guys, and I hope to see you there. I'll share that with them.
Thank you, Ari. So she came on earlier just to do a video test, and she's sitting calmly in a great environment with an amazing background. I had your mic's on. I had the opportunity to meet her a couple years ago when we started to do the Earthstock project. And what's been amazing is that she wears many hats. She does many things. She was also a keynote presenter yesterday at the event. And but she also helped step up and be a host for the Earthstock event that happened last October. So with that, I'd like to welcome again Natalie Pace from Earth Gratitude.
Hi, everyone. I am Natalie Pace with the Earth Gratitude Project. And the reason that I'm here, I'm a Santa Monica resident. So obviously, I'm not directly in Altadena, but I was close enough and I was very close to Pali. So, you don't have to smell the smoke to understand the kind of loss that these residents have gone through. And the reason that I wanted to join the Soil Summit wasn't as a soil expert, but as somebody who, through the Earth Gratitude Project and my studies of sustainability around the world, does have a lot of resources on rebuilding better. So what I wanted to do was to offer some of the details of a vision of a 21st century. And I wanted to show you guys just a few things. I was actually looking around online and I found something very interesting. I'll come back to the composting in just a moment. But this is the Altadena Steadfast team, and they did a survey showing that the community would prefer to get around, even by horse, that you need some horse, but mostly they really want to have a 21st century transportation system and limit the use of the single occupancy vehicles. And that's good for a lot of reasons. CO2, it's better for our health. But when I was there at the Soil Summit yesterday, you're going to have to do the planning to get there. So what I'm trying to do is to help work on the leadership level with the business plan and the funding, but also on the resident level. If we all understand more about what a 21st century city looks like, then we can be the fuel that the leaders need to enact it, because they have to know that that's what we want, or that's what you want. So I wanted to take you through a little bit of information. This is my project, the Earth Gratitude Project, and my vision, which isn't my vision. Obviously, we're seeing it in your surveys, From Ashes to Eden, rebuilding a 21st century community, and not just having the existing roads and everybody existing. We talked about Greg, who is, a resident there, talking about composting, talking about fruit trees, talking about community gardens. This is all real doable. And in fact, sometimes it's going to be that, the easiest solution is that the community comes together, and sometimes it's something that the municipality provides. So I just want to say that all of these are good, not just for our planet, but also for our wallet. And I'm going to show you just a few things. The first thing I want to say is that I kick the dirt on things before we feature them in the Earth Gratitude Project. So this is me learning about regenerative agriculture from King Charles Home Farm Manager. And you can take a screenshot of this. I'm not going to go through everything because we have a very limited time here. But one of the things I wanted to say is that the average person spends about $12,000 per year owning a car. If you made Altadena more of a place where people could take public transportation, walk, and bike, at least for local errands, a lot of people could be saving a lot of money. We also talked about multi-generational households, how you could improve the amount, the per capita wealth factor. That's going to be a big deal as well. And it's also can be very helpful for people that want to do it in various ways. So again, you can take a screenshot of this, or you can pause the recording and look at this in greater detail. But I am going to show you a few things. So like Green Our Planet, they went into Vegas, took out the carpet of grass, got funding to do that, planted student gardens, and the kids now have fun and can actually make their own food. So we want to make sure that we're doing the best practices for eco schools, and there are actually organizations out there that help you raise the money. Safe shared roads are something that we have to do because, they aren't safe right now. And there are, best practices that we all know about. Here in Santa Monica, we're doing that and we're making that transition. Composting can be made very easy in the green yard waste bin. Seattle has been doing this since 2005. Santa Monica does it. And just be careful that you understand in order to do composting, it's food in, plastic out. You can't put them in plastic bags because plastic is not compostable. I just talked about how the average person could save $12,000 a year if they gave up their car. What I want to say real quickly about that is that I had spoken with the former mayor of Santa Monica, 4 adults, 1 car, 5 bikes. And yes, and by the way, I gave up my car in Santa Monica years ago. LA is car culture. I have no problem. If I really need to, I rent a car. Or I might take a ride share. But when you don't have a car, you just have to plan it a little bit better. And I get a lot more walking. I feel very much healthier as a result. And with the money that I save, I'm able to do a lot of other things that I like a lot more than visiting gas stations and making oil companies rich. So in the 1970s, Amsterdam traffic was a mess, the air polluted, and traffic fatalities were high, and the mothers got together and they turned it into a bike culture. So single occupancy vehicles, they pollute, but also they're not the best way to get around in cities. It's also one of the reasons why Americans have a CO2 footprint that is often 3 times that of Europeans. So, now Amsterdam's CO2 per capita is half that of the United States. And just as a reminder, even in California, if you drive an electric vehicle, it's about 50% powered by renewables. Also, especially those of you who are rebuilding, be conscious of the fact that there are standards called passive house standards, and you could actually reduce what you need to spend on energy, which is good for the planet, but also good for your wallet, simply by understanding passive house technology, PHIUS, I believe it's .org. These are films that you should watch and books that you should read. The Wastewater Gardener, The Regenerative Landscaper. One of the things that's going to help with the cistern and the water retention in the soil and also all of that, we would want to think about gray water systems. We would want to think about native landscaping. So all of this stuff, it's kind of a return to nature. It's a return to harmony with Mother Nature. And these are experts that can help the residents understand this so that you can actually make sure that the leaders are creating exactly what you want to create. So regenerative agriculture in Common Ground film, that's on Prime Video. Finding Harmony, A King's Vision is also on Prime Video. So if you're not a Prime Video fan yet, you could probably do it for free for 30 days and watch both. And these 2 books are great. The Wastewater Gardener, The Regenerative Landscaper. Obviously, planting trees is going to be key, and native trees are going to be really important. Ron Finley reminds us that growing your food is like printing your own money. And honestly, if you do have community gardens, an 8x4 box could potentially feed a family of 4 for up to 6 months. There are master gardeners. I would recommend the Dr. Sheridan Ross at Compton Community Garden to come in and teach you how to do gardening properly, because you can get 2 or 3 times the yield, have to water maybe 1/3 with just smarter practices. So again, just getting the experts involved is going to be a big game changer. This is my book, The Power of 8 Billion. It's up to us, and it has a lot of things that I've just talked about in this PowerPoint presentation. These are some of the contributors to the Earth Gratitude Project, and there is a 5-part docuseries for free at earthgratitude.org. So whether you're interested in eco schools, regenerative agriculture, everyday sustainability, animals and conservation, or even why the power of gratitude. And that is one thing that, I'm not a mental health expert, but all of us have suffered at one point or another of a challenge in our life that really stressed out our mental health. And the one thing that I can say is that yes, we do need to live and walk through whatever crisis we're in, but it does help to have a vision of a better tomorrow that we can walk towards. So the power of gratitude can be really powerful in that regard. And we've got a lot of science behind that. There's ebooks at earthgratitude.org. I want to remind us that we are a co-creator of our world, and the sad event of what Altadena had experienced can now be the blank canvas from which to create a 21st century community that could literally be something that the rest of the world wants to come and visit, that the rest of the world would look to and say, this is what we want to create here too. And I know that we have the hearts of the world, that Altadena does have the heart of the world. I know that keeping your community in our minds, that's something I think if you have a vision and if you're working towards it and you're getting milestones, that's newsworthy. So I do think that all of this plays together because people are interested in, communities that transform and do become, the 21st century community that honestly we all know we need and truthfully many of us really desire. So you can reach me at Natalie Pace at earthgratitude.org. We have a community rebuilding resources list with a lot of the people that I've just mentioned here. And again, please watch the 5-part Earth Gratitude docuseries at Earth Gratitude.
Amazing. Thank you. Wow. It's like drinking from a fire hose of genius. Incredible. So I think people can start to see today over the broadcast that there's a lot of people who are specialists in big picture. And excuse the pun, we're going to start to kind of drill down into on the ground response to what happened with the fires in Altadena. So I just want to thank Natalie for showing up. She was also at the hands-on workshop yesterday at Greg Apodaca's land in Altadena. So with that, I will just want to emphasize the importance of ecological design. Natalie painted the picture of some big ideas, the ideas of agro-hoods. But again, all of this is possible in a green rebuilding process when we start with actually from the ground up or from the microbiome up. So with that, we're going to start getting into some of our scientists and specialists. You're going to learn a lot today, and you're going to make some valuable connections. People, after you present, feel free to put your website into the chat because we're trying to enhance connectivity here. But with that, I'd like to introduce from the Earth Rights Institute, and I got to meet her at the Earthstock event back in October. I'd like to welcome Anne Goki.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to begin by first thanking Michael DiMartino, Greg Apodaca, Nikki, and all the others for putting together this important summit. I'm truly honored to be part of this conversation. I describe myself as an elder, an ecofeminist, a political peace and community activist. So I do have this nonprofit called Earth Rights Institute that is also one of the co-hosts of this LA Wildfire Soil Summit. And I'm sorry I missed yesterday. It was a private thing I had to do, but I'm so glad and pleased that it happened and it was successful. Over the years, I've learned that real change happens when communities come together to bring innovative solutions to the crisis we all face today. My understanding of soil began way back in the 80s, 1980s, at a time when I was living in Pennsylvania and I got involved with my community to stop a toxic waste site from being placed near our homes and farm. Fortunately, we were successful. We discovered that toxic chemicals don't stay where they're buried. They move through the soil, into groundwater, into streams, and eventually into the entire watershed. This means the contamination doesn't stay in one place, but travels through the ecosystems, through the food, through water, and ultimately into our bodies. That experience shaped my life's work, both as an environmentalist and as an ecofeminist. I came to understand something really fundamental and that is the health of the earth and the health of our communities are inseparable. I saw the connection of how the same systems that treat land as expendable often treat people the same way. So soil is not just an environmental issue, it's a public health issue, it's a justice issue, and it is a care issue. Because soil remembers what we put into it, whether it's harmful or healing, this is the decision that we as individuals or communities need to choose. What do we do? The question is, what do we choose to put back? Why is it that soil really matters? So now here in Los Angeles, after the fires, the question feels especially urgent. These landscapes that have burned, the soil that carries the aftermath of ash, heavy metals, and toxins from the homes and infrastructure. People are asking, is it safe to rebuild? Is it safe to plant? Is it safe for our children to play outside? This moment isn't only about testing soil, it's about restoring trust between people and the land they depend on. Soil is the earth's living skin. It filters water, it stores carbon, it supports biodiversity, and it sustains our food. When it's healthy, it protects us. When it's damaged, our risks increase. And true recovery can't just come from the agencies and letting the experts do it all, but rather long term resilience comes from informed, engaged communities. And this is the reason for this summit. One of the most important experiences in my life understanding soil was becoming a member of the second ever biodynamic farm to exist in the United States at the time. There, I learned something really simple but very profound. Soil is alive. Imagine a teaspoon of healthy soil contains more microorganisms than there are people on the earth. On that farm, we didn't think about controlling the land, and this was really the shift for me. We thought about caring for it. We built rich compost, we built diversity, we paid attention to the natural cycles like the nutrients, the water, the seasons, the energy. And the results were amazing. Plants were stronger, especially against diseases. Water stayed in the soil long. The land became more resilient to drought and stress. But the biggest lesson was this: you don't dominate living systems. The regenerative movement, which I've been part of for decades, understands that you need to partner with them. And once you understand that, your role changes from being a user to the steward. This perspective became central to my ecofeminist work. Ecofeminism invites us to shift like from extraction to care, from control to relationship, from short-term gain to long-term regeneration. And at its heart, restoration is really about caring. It's a care work. Around the world, I've witnessed and seen soil restoration led by local communities, especially women, farmers, and youth, many of them with limited resources, but they have this deep knowledge of their land. They understand something essential. Healthy soil means healthy families. Healthy soil means food security. Healthy soil means climate resilience. I invite us all to see soil not as a commodity, but as a living system we are in relationship with and responsible to. So the question becomes, what is our role? Yes, government must provide testing standards and resources. Yes, scientists and remediation experts are essential. But the long-term soil health depends on community action. And it begins exactly where we are today, learning, connecting, and showing up. This is what this summit is all about. Residents understanding their soil. The reality is that low-income communities and communities of color often face the highest levels of contamination and the fewest resources for recovery. And I've seen this over and over again. That's why soil work is not just for making a healthy environment, but it's equity work. Soil justice is environmental justice. The good news is that soil regeneration is one of the most accessible solutions we have. Each of us can test our soil, add compost and organic matter, reduce chemical use, support local composting programs, plant native species or cover crops, join or start a community garden, advocate for clean soil policies, just as we heard in the talk before me by Natalie Pace. These may seem like small actions, but soil is built through small actions, repeated over time. And when many people start to do this together, as we saw in Amsterdam, the impact is enormous. In my international work, I've seen communities restore degraded land and rebuild fertility using regenerative practices. In fact, I'll soon be traveling in the next 4 days to Senegal to visit my partners who are working with a network of more than 100 eco-villages that are successfully restoring their lands from being the most devastated region in the world due to climate change. What they are doing is absolutely amazing. Through regenerative systems, they are bringing back the forest, clean water, insects, wildlife, birds, and of course, a healthy means of living for them. And included also in this whole context, they are building a peace forest on the borders with Mauritania and Mali. I am setting up a global regenerative immersion program for people to directly engage in this initiatives and others similar all over the world. We need to collectively collaborate and know of each other and learn from each other. Something, I call it like a regenerative Peace Corps for people to partake in this global exchange. When people reconnect with the land beneath them, they don't just restore ecosystems. They restore dignity, they restore agency, and they restore hope. And hope is exactly what post-disaster recovery needs. When you build soil, you build life. When you build life, you build resilience. And when communities come together to care for the ground beneath them, they are not just restoring land, they are restoring their future. The recovery of Los Angeles will happen not only in buildings and infrastructure, but has to happen beneath our feet because soil holds memory, but it also holds possibility. So let's turn this moment of disruption into a moment of regeneration. Use that. That is the way. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anne. And again, from Earth Rights Institute and your decades of incredible work. So again, I want to welcome, we have about 40 people on the Zoom right now. And again, this will be archived for later broadcast and to share, because we're going to start again getting more and more focused on the soil testing, the soil remediation, bringing in high-level consultants and contractors that are also involved. Some doing large projects on like the Great Salt Lake and other regions around the world that are doing major regenerative projects, remediation, and soil testing. So we want this to be a networking session also. So talking about trees, last night at sunset after the Altadena event, it was incredible because I went and watched the sunset from just outside the Greg's property. And as I looked over, I noticed hundreds of huge trees, some of them really old, ancient trees that weren't burnt, were all cut and stacked in piles. So being a survivor and a neighbor to the Paradise Fire, and also working with Professor Alan Troutner, who moved to Lahaina right before the Lahaina Fire, which kind of helped birth the whole Build Back Green movement initiative. I was completely traumatized and blown away about how many trees were cut. Well, as those trees were starting to be cut in a very undiscerning way, our next presenter was very involved in helping to slow down the wave of disaster capitalism, of more ecological destruction. And we're happy to have her here. I had an opportunity to meet her yesterday. The director of Altadena Green. I'd like to welcome Stephanie Landrigan. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I'm also going to be sharing for a PowerPoint that I put together. I'm Stephanie Landrigan, and I am the director of Altadena Green. We're a very small group of what I call landscape activists, and we also called ourselves first responders because within 2 weeks after the fires, we noticed that trees had been marked. We did not know why. And so we were very interested in trying to save them. This is a little story about it. And I see I now can share. So what I'm going to ask is, am I sharing?
So you have screen share, Stephanie, and your camera's on. I'm not exactly seeing you in the video, but here, I'll turn my mic off. Please continue.
All right. So tell me if this is showing up as a slide.
Yes,
We can see it.
The whole slideshow, right? Wow, it's being weird here. Let's see, slideshow from the beginning. All right, are you seeing my slideshow?
Yes.
All right. So what we fairly forget is that trees and soils and air are all essential to us. And so if we are going to protect our soil, we have to protect our remaining tree canopy because our trees provide ecological services. They are stormwater retention, they prevent erosion, they provide water and air quality improvement. They provide energy conservation, they provide shade, carbon sequestration, and because of the shade, they prevent us from living in hotter areas and they save on energy. And they're habitat for both our pollinators and animals. And in that way, they also provide food both to us and to animals. So if you don't know about the Eaton Fire, this is the Eaton Fire in March 2024, before the fire. And this is in April 2025, after the fire. And what you see are that the trees, many of these trees survived. And what is instrumentally important is what happened is that the Army Corps of Engineers came in and they did an excavation of the debris, but they also did something that has sort of proved to be a tragedy. They removed the topsoil and they removed trees based upon the fact that they called them a hazard. So what used to be a massive tree area, and many of these trees in the other photo that you saw were still surviving, especially up in this area here, these trees are predominantly removed by the Army Corps of Engineers. In that process, we stepped forward and said, wait, what are you using to designate these trees so that they are gone? And we ended up working closely with the Army Corps and with the county to get the very first tree waiver ever issued after a fire. So that if you wanted to keep that last remaining living thing on your property, which was a tree that served as shade for a wedding or a swing for your child, you could keep it because trees are part of our mental health. So what did we do first? What can you do to protect and care? Well, first of all, we wanted to protect the critical root zone soil and water and mulch. Amigos de los Rios came across some funding, and before they had funding, they were out there watering these trees during the summer. They were instrumental in keeping our green canopy around. And what else are the problems? Trees are damaged in many ways, and the Army Corps did a lot of things that were not what we would consider best practices. But the next thing we have to remember is when we start construction, these are areas we have to pay attention to because we have physical injuries that are going to be done during the movement of large equipment. There's going to be root damage because they're going to make grade changes. These are all injuries to our trees. Compaction. Trees, I'm going to show you on the next slide, their upper area of the soil is where the majority of their root system is. We do not want storage under trees. You're changing their grade. The tree protected zone here, the critical zone, is about 5 feet outside of the drip line of a tree's canopy. And as you can see underneath here, you don't want to compact this. You don't want to harm this tree that has saved so many people in Altadena, and homes, and birds, and their bears and their coyotes that are all hanging out under the trees. So what can we do to protect and care for the trees that we have saved? Because it's really important that we protect the root zone. Now that we know construction is coming, we have to work with contractors and architects and landscape architects to have plans that say, put a fence here. We also need to consider having bonds, surety bonds, that if a contractor harms a tree, they are harming something that is a valuable contributor to the value of your future home. And we have to consider them as part of our living return to recovery. So here are some of the things we need to do. I hope that you understand that whenever you build something, you have specifications and then you have plans, and the specifications are the hammer that make contractors do the right thing. And so providing a performance bond for keeping trees is almost essential. Fencing your tree zone, installing signs that clearly state, this is a tree zone, do not enter. You want to have a soil protection zone clause, because if they have to get close to a tree, you need to tell them how to do it so the tree has the best chance of recovering. And lastly, you are going to have soil remediation experts tell you that you want to cover your soil with mulch to keep it from dispersing further toxins. And that needs to be in your clause too, to cover the site with mulch to the recommended depth per the soil remediation specialist before construction, because the minute you get on there, it is going to be redispersed, all of the toxins. So many trees saved homes in the Eaton fire. This is Christmas Tree Lane right over here. And you will see on the side that is the west side, we have lost homes. But on the right side, this double alley of 100-year-old deodar cedars protected this section of homes. The library was fully intact because of these trees. They were ember catchers. This was 100-mile-an-hour fire. It was an urban conflagration, because a wildfire is fire that goes from crown to crown, and this fire went from structure to structure. So if we use nature to help us with urban barriers and ember catchers, this is another area in Altadena, Holliston, that was protected by massive tree plantings. And the trees are there and many of the homes, but even in smaller areas, the trees have not been able to do the duty. It's massive trees. So for all the trees that saved our homes, it is our moral and ethical duty to help keep Altadena cool, to keep it green, to save our wildlife, our oxygen, and our heat island, mitigating it by protecting and caring for our trees. That has been the purpose of Altadena Green. We're a very small 501c3 that we are working very hard to work and assess trees for their health with all of the residents who are there. And thank you for letting me talk about what we do and how important the trees are to the future of the rebuilding and the resiliency of this community that is so amazing. Thank you.